I am going to get that set up. So we're recording the session just for Kristen's, to answer your question, Kristen, we are recording. So I should be able to get this out to you after the meeting ends so that you can have it to share with anybody else who would like to see it.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep, and I will, if it's okay with Jared, make him our presenter and then have him kind of step us through everything. And of course, we can stop at any point and make sure questions get answered. Jared, do you have control now?
I do, and you guys should be able to see my screen here, actually. You guys should be able to see my mouse moving around in the center, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, very good. Before we get started, I want to kind of just piggyback off what Andy said, make things conversational. Ask us many questions. Something catches your attention, let me know. We'll be able to take care of you on that aspect. Before I also get started, I would like to mention we try to make things as easy as possible. Kind of the reason behind that is, and Andy will agree with me on this one, is that we can sell you software, but if you and your team or anybody on your team doesn't like it, they're going to go and kind of do what they've been doing, which was ineffective when it comes to buying a new software. And so with that being said, this is very a mobile app-esque, you could say. We've got our functionality, which is accessed by that simple menu button in the top left-hand corner, where we can access the settings, the administrator section, some workflow, the quick list, things like that. Then, of course, across the top here, we have the ability to create new items, share items, edit current items, whether they be locations, document names, things like that. Then we also have the ability to search over here in the further right-hand-most area. The search we'll dive into a little bit later, more in detail. In short, we can search for documents using their names or what we call metadata or profile data. And then, of course, we can find those documents very effectively and quickly. Now, the main portion of the program down here is very simple. Once again, we've got our structure view, which is off to this left-hand side here. We've got our main view, which is kind of course, in the center area. Then we've got our document information view, whether it be the preview of a document, whether it be the profile data, or anything else that may pertain to that specific item. Now, our structure is pretty simple. We've taken a digital, or more or less, we've taken a filing cabinet, those big old metal filing cabinets, and we've made them digital. All of the items you currently see are cabinets, whether it's accounting up here at the top, whether it's legal, whether it's, we're down here at the bottom where we're zonal OCR routing. If I open up any given cabinet, I now have a list of drawers. Of course, if I open up drawers from here, I now have folders. If I open up any given folder, I can have subfolders, which of course can go down as far deep as you really wish or desire, until we start finding our documents. You'll notice I have a plethora of documents in here, whether it be a CSV file, a PowerPoint file, PDF, email message, MOV. Again, we can store a large variety of files. In fact, I haven't come across a file type that we have not been able to store quite yet. Now, if I start clicking on files, a preview is going to load up in the far right-hand corner, or far right-hand side of the screen, where I can now preview, go through it, zoom in, zoom out, very basic functionality, even as far as printing to a specific printer on your network or your local computer. Now, of course, if I want to edit the document, we have to do what we call check out the document, where basically we take the document and open it up on the computer inside of its native format, whether that be Adobe, whether that be Word, Outlook, or whatever program you're using for that specific document type. So any questions so far on the software or what we've seen?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, good to hear. We'll kind of jump right along here. We were talking about profile metadata and metadata just a few minutes ago. This is going to be very specific to documents, or drawers, or folders. The reason behind that is because it makes it easy for us to kind of classify documents, you could say. That being said, this one is going along in the accounting field or the accounting industry, considering it's a 1040. Now, of course, on here I may have the customer city, their company name if they own a company, their last name, any type of information I choose. We want to highlight that these fields are all customizable. You can add, insert, remove, edit any of these fields to make it be what you see fit. whether that's a text field, whether that's a date, whether that's a specific drop-down, whether you choose from option A, B, or C. You can have it be a number, currency. There's all sorts of different types of information sets for this. And of course, you can have as many different fields within a profile as you would like, as well as you can have as many different profiles as you would like. And of course, all of that is now searchable. So of course, if I were to take this person's last name of Quenneville here and type it in up in the top, I'd be able to find this document or this particular drawer that this document is in. In fact, there's the one we were looking at right there. Once again, just searchable information helps us find documents. Nobody classifies documents, okay?
Jared, how do you assign the profiles? Like, how do you decide how, or can it be required that a certain profile that you created is required for a certain either folder, or like we have certain document types where a particular profile is going to be required for the metadata?
Sure, that's a great question. We can do several different ways of adding this data in there. We can, of course, type it in manually, where I can click on Edit Profile up here, and I can start changing that information manually. We also offer several other ways. You mentioned specifically that folders have specific profile data, where maybe you want to apply some of that data, for example, to documents underneath there. We offer that capability as well, where upon storing a document, you can push down the data from the folder to the document. Then now the one that I want to highlight the most for you is going to be a program that we offer called Zonal OCR. Zonal OCR is actually going to look at specific fields of documents, and I can show you an example of this if you would like, where it's going to look at specific fields or areas of documents based on what type of document you have, based on where you want it to read the data, and then it's going to read those areas and place this data on here for you accordingly. It can also auto-store these documents according to that specific template or the data that it sees, again, based on what it sees on the document. It can look for a customer, sort underneath that customer. It can look for a static location, store it there as well.
So for an example, would this be a possibility, like, so since we'll be using this with Salesforce, if we had a Salesforce ID in a certain place on the document, could it read it and then auto assign that document to that person's record in Salesforce?
Yeah, we can do that. We just want to make sure the information matches exactly.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and in fact, that's actually good. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, when you assign these metadata fields, at what level are they assigned? Is that the whole file cabinet, or is that in a drawer? Do you know what I mean?
Or what are the options, I guess you want to know, right? Like about.
Yeah, so if you have a, I just wonder where the metadata fields are created and assigned and which levels those feed into, if that makes sense.
Okay, so this is going to be kind of a two-part answer. In terms of actually creating the profiles and setting them up and, basically making the skeleton of it where you can now put it on documents or drawers or folders, etc. That's done within the admin section over off that far left-hand menu we showed you earlier. Now that being said, actually applying it to items, kind of answering your question in terms of where can it be placed and things like that, it can be placed on really any level you choose, whether it be on a drawer, on a folder, or on a document. And of course, you can have folders within folders that can have different profile fields if you would like. This is really all customizable to how you guys want it set up.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Absolutely. Any other questions on that aspect, or do we think we're pretty set there?
I think we're set for now.
Okay, good to hear. Now, I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit because this was brought up. You said you were going to use this with Salesforce. I'm going to jump into that portion now because that's going to be a huge benefit for you guys when it comes to this. I want to highlight and say that Salesforce, all of that information we can really pull. And it sounds like you're going to be doing it off of a person or a customer's record. Is that an incorrect assumption? Yeah,
so the way we're using Salesforce as a nonprofit, we use a lot of different sections, but the main are, of course, our accounts and contacts, and then opportunities are where most of our donations are stored. So we do a lot of attaching of documents at all three of well, we want to attach directly to contacts and donations, but we'd also, from an account perspective, want to be able to see all the documents that have associations to that account. Does that make sense?
Sure, that does make sense. So you could say that the main priority use is going to be at the account level, but you use all different aspects of it, whether it be, I'm going to use my kind of example being opportunities, leads, contacts, maybe cases, things like that, right?
Yeah, and also custom objects as well.
Sure. Okay. So we'll jump into this a little bit, and I'll show you what we can do in terms of that. It is going to take what we call templates, where we set up folder structures, and I'm going to show you how we would use that to our advantage. So for example, I can take a contact here, or an account, or whatever, and I can link these items, or these objects, from Salesforce to eFileCabinet. Now, the first thing being is you'll notice I have a list of accounts that I've dealt with recently, namely DPC here, or there's a couple of different numbers, or Burlington Textiles, or Spiders, or things like that. Now, if I switch back over to eFileCabinet here, those are actually going to be locations within eFileCabinet. See, there's quite the list here. And these are all items that I pulled over from Salesforce. Here's some of them that we mentioned, namely DPC, Salt Lake City Spiders, New York Life, things like that. Now, if I click on any given of these locations here, and I go ahead and select the metadata, in fact, we'll find one that I know has metadata on it, this is all pulled over from Salesforce. So here's maybe the account creation date. We can enter their last name info. We can enter really whatever we choose to be mapped over from Salesforce specifically. So that metadata will kind of take care of itself when we map these items from Salesforce. Now, the key indicator here is that we're going to map primarily one object at a time. That's why I was trying to understand which you would use as kind of your main view. And once again, that sounded like it was going to be an account level, or maybe a person or contact level. Now, of course, all the custom objects within Salesforce at that point, I would recommend using what we call templates, where I can go ahead and I'm actually going to go through this process for you and create a new account. And I'm going to give it Utah Ice Traders, like so. And we'll give it a couple fields of information. I'll type in my email there. And then really any other information that we want to type in here will be mapped over as you choose accordingly. Now, as I save that, it's not only going to create that within Salesforce, but you'll notice down here, eFileCabinet is working to create me a new drawer for eFileCabinet. Now, if I switch back over here and I refresh my page, I'm going to have a Utah Ice Raiders drawer, just like so. And then down here at the bottom, there it is. Now, the advantage of using templates is I can right-click on this, and I can select Apply a Template, and now I can choose what kind of a template this is going to be. For example, I can apply an accounts payable template where it says, these are the folders I see. We can apply really your custom objects as template folders inside of here and have those be now items within the contact or the account, or once again, whatever that main level is going to be used as. So now, of course, I'd select whatever template I want to use, and I'd apply that, and now that folder is created underneath there. And you can see there's different sets of subfolders as well. So that's what I would recommend.
Set up to happen automatically, or is that wouldn't be a manual process for every new account?
No, that's something that really, once again, you'd right-click, select Apply Template, and you'd set those folders up based on the template. We can mass create all of your different drawers and locations, and then mass apply this template so that it goes to every single drawer within here if I would like, and it's the same folder structure underneath every single one. So it's pretty similar to your Salesforce, for sure.
Yeah.
Very good question. And then, of course, now the last thing I want to highlight is that we already kind of went over this, but within Salesforce now, we're going to refresh this page as well. If I go ahead and start diving into Salesforce here, there's that folder I just created. And now within here, I can start storing documents. And instead of using Salesforce storage, which we all know is very expensive, I will be using eFileCabinet storage, which is much, much less expensive. And of course, it's all accessed within Salesforce. You can store documents within Salesforce. You can preview them within here. Kind of do most of your basic work within Salesforce if you would even like. Okay?
Yep.
Very good.
We have a question real quick.
Does it also work with Salesforce One with the mobile applications?
Yes, actually, I have tested that very thoroughly. It gives you the same functionality. You can store documents within there. We can also use our mobile application to take pictures and drop them into eFileCabinet, which will, of course, reverse back into Salesforce as well. So that does work. Very good. Any other questions on the Salesforce integration or how we're going to use that to our advantage?
So the same thing goes, with accessing documents. You could find the document you're looking for and check it out within Salesforce, or would you have to then launch the full version of eFileCabinet to check out a document?
That's a great question. Personally, from my experience, it's better to launch eFileCabinet to check out and edit a document. Within Salesforce, for the most part, you're just going to be previewing documents and uploading and maybe moving documents around within that account. Here's a quick example of what it looks like. So I can go ahead, find a document I'm looking for, whether it's a Word doc or a PDF or whatever, and there's the preview. Now, of course, you can see within here that I can just preview the document like if I were using eFileCabinet. We do offer the capability from here to download that directly, so you can make offline changes to it, and then kind of upload those and make the changes to those in an offline style. But if you're going to want to do it live and check it out and use that process, it's better to launch it in eFileCabinet.
And can you control, like, from security who's allowed to download a document, or, like, I'm going to take, or you can hold this if you want till you get to the security section.
Yeah, actually, no, we'll roll right from here into that a little bit because, yes, I can control that. Now, for the security aspect and permissions, let me highlight that for you really quickly and show you what it looks like. We can take really any level, whether it be a cabinet, whether it be a drawer, whether it be a folder, or even a single specific document if I would like, and I can control who has access to it, and on various different levels as well. I can go ahead and add a single user to it, kind of on the on the right-hand side. You can see where I've got my user, and then I've got another user underneath there, where it's the blue icon. And then I can also have groups of users, where this is kind of my sales reps team, this is my account individuals team, where they have different levels. And you'll notice that this user is very restricted. He can't even log in and see this location at all. Whereas the sales reps can log in and view and edit, and then my account individuals team can go ahead and log in, view, edit, and maybe delete some items in case they're getting rid of a customer or whatever that case may be. That's, once again, applied on any different level, whether it be a cabinet down to a drawer, or I can push that from a drawer down to a single specific document if I would like. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. And then, of course, based on this and what they have access to, or the users that are using the Salesforce integration, will also control what they have access to and what they can do from within Salesforce. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. Very good. The next couple of things I wanted to highlight over for you are going to be along the lines of retention, version history, and things like that, just some of our basic features. Now, retention is going to be very simple. I do apologize. I'm not insanely familiar with what field of work you guys are in. I know you're a nonprofit. But what kind of retention policies do you guys currently have within your organization?
Well, for the initial use, using it with Salesforce, forever.
Okay.
We don't have a policy. I think if we were using this organization-wide, then that might be something we would consider doing on certain types of documents for a retention policy.
Sure.
But
Sure.
Yeah, right now we're using it in such a limited way.
Yeah.
It hasn't become an issue.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
if we used it for all of our gifts, then it would be 7 years for gifts, gift documentation, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes perfect sense, actually. And in case you haven't noticed already, we can actually offer indefinite retention right here at the very top. So we can help you along with that lines as well. Now, specific retention, go ahead.
So that can be the different. You can have different retention policies for different cabinets and such.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the retention policies are really controlled on what we call locations. When I say that, what I mean is that we can have retention policies that apply to drawers for a single customer at a time, or a single project, and if you're doing project management type deals, that situation. Now, underneath there, you can even take it further, and you can apply it to different document types. Like in here, I have blank documents, I have accounts payable stuff, I have inactive items. I can apply different retention policies to those different folders. Now, it's not going to protect the folder itself. It's actually going to protect the documents underneath there. We're going to set these up on time frames. For example, on accounts payable, I can set up a retention policy to be active for 7 years, whereas on my inactive items, I want to make that retention policy 5 years, for example. And of course, we can change that across different locations. Now, what that means is that whenever I store a document with an accounts payable, upon that store date, it's going to protect it for 7 years. Whereas if I store it in accounts payable, it's going to protect it for 5 years. And of course, each time we change the location, it changes the time frame for retention. And then, of course, we can also apply retention to single documents at a time. So if I need to change it to end of the month or maybe 5 years and 6 months from now or whatever the case may be, we can apply those specific retention dates. Now, of course, the last thing that I want to highlight here is that we can have suggested actions to happen within the system. We're really not bold or brave enough or daring or anything like that to actually do this for you. We're just going to let you know that, hey, this is what you wanted to have happen when this time frame is up. Namely, if you wanted to have it purged or shredded at that point in time, or the more common action from what I see is to have it moved or copied to an archived location from the active area, you could say. That way it helps protect your documents, you meet more HIPAA compliances or FINRA or whatever compliance needs you have there. So does that help answer some of those questions, maybe help clarify a little bit?
Yep.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, talking about compliance and a couple of other those needs as well, or we're going to jump into version history and auditing. Version history and auditing kind of go hand in hand. The reason I say that is because every time I make a change to a document, it's going to be viewed within this version history. In fact, this is a poor example of version history. This one's a little bit better. It's very extensive. Now, the version history is covered for the entire life of the document, from when it's stored within eFileCabinet, really up until it's completely purged out of the system or shredded. Now, of course, that being said, you'll notice that I have a very wide list here where I can choose through and see all of my different versions by the date and timestamp. Now, I have the capability to select any of these given particular date and timestamps and setting that as the current version. So now when I go to view that document, based on that date and timestamp and setting that as the current version, that's the version that I see when I preview it or I check it out or download it, et cetera, et cetera. Then, of course, I can switch it back to the most current version of the document as well. Now, upon the lines of what I mentioned earlier in terms of offline editing, downloading it, and doing what I need to work offline, we also have the capability to find documents within my computer by clicking on this Upload New Version, finding the document I've been working on offline, and make that the new updated version of that document. Okay?
When you check something out and edit it, do you have the option of just, as you're saving it, to upload it back, or do you have to go in and re-upload it separately?
We do have the capability to do that, and that's going to be covered a little bit later in my demo when I cover a little tool called Sidekick. In fact, this is my Sidekick tool right here, little floating orb, and I'll cover that for you in a minute. Now,
we did have one other. Rachel, did you have another question, or was it the same question?
So I'm guessing since you don't have it in this displayed here, we can't see who. We can just see when the version was created.
Correct, correct. That's actually going to be covered right here, which is what I was going to go over next. This is our audit logs. Yeah, no, I'm perfect. I'm glad you guys are reading my mind here. Now, that being said, audit logs show us everything that's happened to the document. From, once again, the lifespan, when it's stored inside of eFileCabinet, to current date until it's shredded. Whether it's I searched for the document, whether it's I checked it out and made a change to it, whether I moved it, renamed it, edited the profile, really whatever happens to that document, we track it. Now, that being said, we also have system-wide audit logs where we track every single click within the program, from an incorrect login to, again, I'm viewing this audit logs tab here, to I'm previewing the document. We track everything, and that's to help meet some of those compliance needs once again. And this tells you who did it, when they did it, where the computer IP address is, things to that effect. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Any other questions on those two before I jump into Sidekick?
Nope.
Okay. You guys are keeping up. I like it. Now, Sidekick, this is a fun little tool. This is something very unique to us. I haven't seen any other company come up with this. And of course, it's very unique in terms of, you notice it stays on top of my desktop. No matter what window I have open, if I open up here, where now, of course, I have eFileCabinet, doesn't matter. I can open it up. And really, this is where I recommend using a lot of your frontline work needing to be done. For most of your frontline users that are just storing documents, searching for them, editing them, that kind of thing. Then again, the admins, of course, they'll use the full-blown version, which is what we've seen so far. Now, from here, to kind of highlight based on what we were talking about a moment ago, where I just need to check out the document, make a change to it, and upload that change, all I do is find the document, whether I search for it or whether I, manually navigate to it like I've done, and I double-click on it. Now it's going to open up, and I do apologize, it opened up on my other screen. It's going to open up within its native format, whether that be Adobe, whether that be Foxit for me, whether that be Word, Excel, et cetera, et cetera. Now, of course, I make those changes. I go ahead and take, we'll just add a quick view of text here. We'll take a typewriter, and we'll say demo, and we'll just put today's date of 12/5, like so. And we're going to close this out, and it's going to ask me if I want to save changes to it. Yes. Now, you'll notice that it gave me a little notification. Actually, I do apologize. It popped up on my other screen. But it gives me a notification saying it's ready to be checked in now. And then we've got two options. I can either upload the changes, and you can see that as I hover over it, or I can ignore the changes. And again, you can see that. I upload the changes, and now, of course, that's saved to that document. If I check it out again, it's going to go ahead and reflect that change on the document as well. And it will also reflect that change within the preview or inside of the full-blown version as well. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Now, again, this is where most of your frontline work is going to be done. I want to cover at this point how you're going to get documents in here for, again, most of your frontline workers. They're going to be able to drag and drop into here, whether it's from their desktop or whether it's from, of course, we have File Explorer over here. Now, of course, within File Explorer, this is kind of an also added benefit we have, is that I can take an entire folder structure if I would like. So from here, I can go ahead and take, we'll take this Baldur folder, and I'll just upload it into Alenka right here. And it uploads that entire folder for me. So I jump into here, and it's now working on uploading all those documents that were in that folder for me. We can also do the same for exporting documents. Yes, so we offer a little bit of a... No, I'm glad you guys are excited. We're excited about this too because it makes it easy, honestly. That's the biggest thing. Now, that's not the only way we can get documents in there. We have all sorts of things. Do you guys use Microsoft Office at all? Word, Outlook, Excel, things like that?
Yes, Office and Outlook and all that good stuff.
Perfect. And they are the locally installed versions, right? Not the online one?
We do use Office 365, but they are locally installed. I mean, people run the applications from their desktop.
Perfect. Then we can work with that. What we've got, and I'll actually bring over my Outlook for you, and pardon me here while I bring that over. What we've got is, you'll notice we've got this little add-on right here, where all that I need to do is I click on that after selecting, for example, the email in this case, or if I'm working on Word or Excel, it's the current document. Now I just choose where I want it to go within eFileCabinet, and then it stores that as it were, whether it be a Word file or Excel or PDF, or sorry, not PDF, but Outlook, email, et cetera, et cetera. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and a question about email. If you have an email message and an attachment, can you do both at the same time, the email and whatever was attached to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll show you a quick example here. Any email that goes into eFileCabinet comes out the exact same way. In fact, here's a small example. I don't believe this one has an attachment on it. But from here, I can go ahead and reply to this. I can forward it. I can do whatever I need to. And then, of course, once I've replied to it, I save that updated version into eFileCabinet as it is. That goes with attachments, etc. Now, the other added benefit is that I can also drag and drop those attachments from Outlook directly into the Sidekick tool so that I can store the attachments separately if I would like to. So we kind of offer the flexibility of doing both.
I'm sorry, did you say that if you drag and drop,
yes,
do they go in as one or do they split into two?
Since we have the option.
You have the option. You can do both ways. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a quick example, right? I'm taking this email, and I just want the attachment. I just drag that attachment into eFileCabinet, and you'll notice that it's actually working on uploading that for me in the background there. Now, of course, if I want the entire email and the attachment to go, I'd take this and drag it over into here. Okay?
Yep, and it shows up as 2.
If you did it separately, yeah, it would show up 2.
But if you drag it, just the email with the attachments, it comes over as 1 email.
That's
Correct.
correct. Yep.
And then the attachments are embedded still.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Can't really see that there are attachments.
Is there a way to see if an email that you dragged had an attachment on it in eFileCabinet?
So this is something that I know that we're actually updating in the system right now because it was brought to our attention recently. The closest thing that we can do is we'd go to the preview here, and it would normally say that there's an attachment right here, where underneath the CC field. And that's something I know that we're working on updating. Like I said, it was brought to our attention recently.
Okay, so something that in the future version may change.
Yeah, and it should really be coming soon. In fact, I'm going to follow up with them today because I've been out the past couple of days in terms of where that sits.
Okay, great.
Perfect. Any other questions on that? I know that there's a couple of ways that we can get documents in that I didn't mention, but just know that there's a very broad variety of ways to get in there.
And when you were in in Salesforce, I saw looked like there was a drag and drop upload area too. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely. Right here, and of course, same thing. I can take any given document and I can just drop it in there, and it will now upload to eFileCabinet for me right there.
Are you going to talk about bulk scanning and any options we might have around that?
Or could you?
So scanning from paper?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. This is pretty simple. Sorry, I do apologize there. My voice got a little hoarse. But with that being said, what we have is we have a little application for scanning. We can connect to, whoops, wrong button there. We can connect to any of your little local Twing compliant scanners, mainly desktop ones that just sit there on your desktop, and of course connect to your computer only. Now that being said, what we do is we go ahead and connect to those, and you just click on the scan button here. And as we click on the scan button, and pardon me while I go ahead and scan documents over here, but we go ahead and just load those within this previewer here, where from there...
Are you showing a previewer? Because there we go. Okay, now we see it.
It was actually just scanning them in.
Okay.
And then from here, I can either store these as one file, so both pages here, or I can batch them in and store them as maybe I've got 10 different pages, and the first 2 are one document, the next 3 are the next document, etc. down that list. We can batch them in if we need to. Then from here, what I would do is I would go to Sidekick, and I would choose where I want these documents to be stored. If I want to store them in accounts payable, I'd right-click on it and select as the default store location. Then all that I do is click on Store, and it sends those files there with a predated name and, of course, a date and timestamp on there for us. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then if I want the next batch of documents, I would just... Go ahead.
And this is where we could use, like, if we did have if we had a contact ID on whatever we're scanning, it could potentially read it and send each separate, like if it was a one-page letter and it had an ID on it, it could send that letter to the correct, attach it to the correct record.
Yes, yes, we do. We do have that capability. In fact, we have a little bit of time to my understanding. Let's jump into that for just a moment. Let me bring in an example for you. And this is one that I actually just built earlier today for a separate customer. And what we've got is Zonal OCR. Now, Zonal OCR, you'll notice I've got certain fields on here that maybe apply to this document specifically. Now, all that I'm going to do is I'm going to click Run. It's going to ask me which document I have, and then, of course, it's going to try and read that document for me. Now, this is only going to look at specific zones of the document. I think I've got 6 or 7 in here, maybe a little bit more, that I need it to be read. Namely, for example, the person's name that bought the car, or the dealer that I'm working with, or the dealer code, or the VIN number of the car, and of course other fields to that importance. Now, this is going to pull that data, apply it as metadata for me, as well as, once I'm ready to, have it stored within the program. So you'll notice here that there's a couple of different fields where these blue boxes are. Here's the name, contract number, and of course that continues on down the list here. Now, all of that information, you'll notice some of it may not be 100% read correctly just because of how the document looks. Very simple. At that point, any OCR engine might have difficulty reading it. Now, of course, I also have the ability. Go ahead.
Sorry, quick question. In the example, like if we just had it was a letter in the bottom corner, we had an ID number. Could it use that ID number to pull back the rest of the metadata from Salesforce, like so the person's name and or any other data, or could it only read it from the actual document? That
is
make
a
sense?
good question. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. In essence, you're using kind of a not a barcode, but you could say a recognizable code or something by your system, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we actually try to eliminate that need and just say, look, we are the barcode, right? We say, here's all your data. Here's what you need it to read. Now use that data and store the document, which, again, kind of essentially eliminates the need for a barcode or that identifier number, right?
I'm not sure if you...
Quite.
Yeah, so this is a situation where we have these letters and they have the unique...
If we put a unique, their unique Salesforce ID. Like contact dash 12345.
Now we want that to, it checks that, that's what we're talking about, the zonal recognition.
Yeah.
Checks your ID, and then we want that to pull the metadata from that and associate it with this document when it's stored in eFile. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of like you were saying, you could pull over the metadata from Salesforce. This is similar to that, but it would be doing it based on just that ID number.
So we don't want it to have to we don't want to have to put all the metadata in the document in order to be pulled out. Sure. We want to be able to just pull out the ID and then reference it.
I mean, then curious if it could do that.
I think we asked on the previous call, and I thought that's what we had gotten to. No?
Yeah, no, that's something that we, we can't do. Partially because this program is going to directly reference eFileCabinet. It's not going to reference to Salesforce at all.
Okay. But if you had the ID number, it would put it in the right folder so that when you were in Salesforce, you would see the document.
Yeah, if we, what we could do and how I could see this flowing is, for example, you have a folder for that ID number, right, that reference ID, underneath the contact or the person or the account, etc., right? We could tell it to use the account information on here, so the account name or whatever. We'd look for that account. Then in the subfolders, we'd tell it to look for that reference ID and store it underneath that reference ID. That's something we can
do. What's his name again?
Jared.
Jared, this is something where I feel like we got a little bit, I got confused when we did our original call. Can we just use the reference ID, zonal character recognition of the ID, and then put it under the ID folder in Salesforce / eFile?
Yeah, I think you said yes. I think you said yes.
So the key indicator here is that it has to have another reference point, right? If we're running everything off of just that identifier, so if the drawer name has the identifier within eFileCabinet, and then you've got all the other folders underneath there, we can look for that identifier. If the identifier is going to be a folder underneath an account or a contact or whatever else inside of eFileCabinet, then we have to reference something else first before we get to that identifier. Does that make sense?
I think so. So you're saying it basically depends on how we set it up.
I think it's okay for us to, because presumably the information will be still on that letter, right? It will be the name.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd have to look at it. I think it's worth exploring a little more closely. It's not something we're currently actually doing.
Yeah, this is a step up.
But it would be a good step up for folks like Pam doing your acknowledgement letters if it would just auto-assign it to the right account and you didn't have to do it manually.
Huge. Yeah, I think.
So I think we could explore it.
And Terry, you might already have the situations, right? If you have a source code in the new system, we'll have the source code and the contact ID on those source documents. So that's the case where it would already exist, right?
The record would already exist, yeah.
That what we needed on that source document would already exist because it would have the constituent ID and the marketing source code if it was an in-house.
If she's going to associate it directly with the donation, I don't know how that would work. So we'd have to figure out how we want to do the storage. I think that the big takeaway from this is we'd have to really think through how we want to set up the storage and the cabinets and the drawers and the files.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's good for now. It gives us something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And that really is kind of what we've got for you, what we thought would be most beneficial for you guys within our system. Any overarching, go ahead.
Can you just talk a little bit? We have one person in the room, Willie, who introduced himself from our administration department, who's looking at this a little more holistically and how the organization as a whole, outside of our Salesforce users, might use this. Can you talk a little bit about generally on workflows and sort of approvals, and also on sort of integrations with other products? I know, and Willie might have seen this too. I saw a DocuSign piece over there. We do use DocuSign. Could you talk a little bit sort of generally about those topics?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of questions before I dive too far into these. I guess what kind of integrations were you hoping for when it comes to other products? I mean, like QuickBooks?
Well, we do use DocuSign. We do not. We're looking at a new finance system, and the current selection that the contract hasn't been signed, but is a product called Serenic that's on the Microsoft Dynamics platform. So that would be one we would be interested in if there was any integration there, or any way that we could integrate it, even if it's not out of the box.
Yeah. So we don't have an out-of-the-box integration. I'm glad that you brought up any possible ways to integrate with it, because we do offer an open API, which we can get you information for, that really allows for a broad variety of things to happen. It allows for eFileCabinet to perform searches based on metadata. It allows you to store documents with metadata from other programs. I mean, once again, there's a broad variety, and I can't really cover all of it within one call, because there's a lot it can do.
Yeah, that's fine. We can. Do you have some other documentation you could send over?
I'll make sure that we get you a link that really goes over where you basically sign a quick EULA for us that shows you what some of the classes are that we use, what some of the routes that we use, some of the API information. Really, it's kind of like a white paper for it.
Okay.
Perfect. And then I heard you guys mention DocuSign specifically. Is that something you're currently using or looking into, or?
We currently use.
Okay, perfect. Well, right here we do have a DocuSign integration where all that I want to do, if I want to send out a document via DocuSign, I right-click on it and select DocuSign. And then I can now send it out to my client, type in their email address, and then choose where I want them to sign. And then, of course, they'll receive an email. And, it's basically DocuSign at this point. We offer that type of integration. And then, of course, once they signed it, sent it back to you, we can store the signed document or the signed version within eFileCabinet as you choose. Okay?
Any questions on that?
Very good.
What about workflow or routing capabilities?
Sure. So with workflow, how intensive are you guys hoping to have a workflow be? Is it going to be very basic, like I need to assign it and route it to this person and then maybe move a location? Or is it going to be something a little bit more intensive where I need to move it, assign it, remove it, 20 different steps type of workflow?
I think it's going to be more on the simpler side.
Maybe even more simple than he just described. I mean, our goal is to truly use it as a file cabinet for documents that have already kind of passed through the process.
Or what about if we did use it for finance, like if you wanted to route an invoice to get approved? So like an invoice routing where somebody has to code it and approve it and send it back to accounts payable kind of thing.
But it would be pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So maybe a 3 or 4 step workflow where the person that gets assigned to it maybe gets an email notification, and then they log in, code it, and then once it gets coded, they send it off to the location where it needs to go, right?
Yep, exactly.
Sure. Yeah, that's something that we can do within the system. Really, it's just more or less of a drag and drop capability where we allow you to put the steps out in place, drag them where you want them to go, and then you just connect the dots from there. It's as simple as that.
And is it assigned as like as part of the profile or the template, or like how do you know, like how do they pick a document to be workflowed? For like
good question. Good question. So this is flexible. We can assign single documents at a time, where we just go searching for a new document. You maybe have a dump location that you have incoming invoices or whatever, and you just right-click and select that to go to workflow, and then you choose that workflow it needs to get added to. So invoice approval is one, for example. And then upon that, you could code it using the profile data. Once it's coded using the profile data, we can then route it to where it needs to go within eFileCabinet.
This is DocuSign you're talking about.
What's DocuSign?
No, this is what you're talking about, the DocuSign.
No, this would be more intro. DocuSign is more like legal.
It's like contracts.
Contracts.
So
This is internally,
eFile.
like I send an invoice to Willie, he codes it and approves it and then sends it on to finance to be paid. And it's filed in eFileCabinet, yeah. Anyone have any additional questions or want to go back and look at anything again?
I just wanted to double check. You did say we could use all objects in Salesforce, even custom objects?
Yes, we can use any given object within Salesforce, including your custom objects, and we can pull any data from those objects as well and map them to. I would recommend using drawers within eFileCabinet just because it keeps everything a little bit more linear.
A different drawer for each object.
Exactly. Yep. Or more or less, actually, each different drawer is a different record of each object, right?
So what would the object be, a cabinet?
Yeah, so no, the object is going to be kind of like the cabinet, you could say, where it's an account or a contact or an opportunity or your custom object. And then each of those drawers underneath that cabinet are going to be those records, namely the account specifically to, we created the one Utah Ice Raiders or DPC or once again, whatever those items or records may be.
But if we had if we were attaching record or documents directly to an opportunity, which again is where we store a lot of our donation information, and so we store sort of gift documentation. You know, might be a letter, could be a copy of the check, whatever it is. We would be able to associate that in a way where we could be at the account or contact level and see that those documents that were stored on the opportunity.
Yep, I would just have you guys create a folder for the opportunity underneath the account within eFileCabinet, whether it's applied via template or manually created, and then you just be able to open up the account within Salesforce, and then eFileCabinet, go to the opportunities folder, and then you could see the opportunities documents.
Okay, so I think that we would have separate sort of cabinets for unrelated objects, like events. For example, maybe we want, because those aren't related to accounts and contacts. And then the stuff that's related to accounts and contacts would be all underneath that top level. That makes sense to me.
Gotcha.
Okay. Very good. All right. Any other questions?
I don't think so. If we do, if anyone has follow-up questions, you can send them to me, and Fraser or I will make sure we get them to you guys. Okay.
Thanks, Jared.
That'd be
Thanks,
great.
Andy.
If you'd, yeah, thanks, guys. This is appreciated. Fraser, I'll follow up with you, but any questions you have, get them to me, and then if I can't answer them, I'll have Jared get involved, and we can make sure we get you all the appropriate questions.
Perfect.
Cool.
Great. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. See ya.